So what happens if earphones are too uncomfortable to use for long periods of time, but headphones are too bulky and you want something to take with you? Well, I decided to give a try of AUNE's AC55 clip-on headphones, and they are quite blingy looking. If you've already seen the photos, if you've been on Headfire, you'll see the ads have been all over the site recently. And I agreed to review them because I thought, well, this is something a little bit different. What happens if you take a pair of dynamic drivers, stick them in a small case, and you don't have that whole bulk of a headphone around your ear? How's the sound quality going to be? Well, these are only a couple of $100 and they do look like very blingy for their design and, well, the price, I should say. They have this very heavy audiophile cable, which thankfully has a little clip so you can clip it in place, because once you set them up with the cable on there, they do just hang off your ears. And initially they were a little bit uncomfortable, and, well, they can hang off your ears with glasses as well, but they are fairly easy to pull off out of place. So it's a good thing that at least you can clip the cable in place, given how heavy it is. And these are a little bit heavy as well, considering you've got basically a couple of magnets next to your ears. In terms of what they come with though, if I pull off the plug, it actually has a detachable 4.4mm plug. So you can unscrew it and pull it off there and attach instead a 3.5mm plug alternatively. That's actually pretty cool for something only around $200. On the other end as well, you have detachable plugs. I think they're 2-pin IEM plugs of some kind, but they are quite tight, and that allows them to stay very firmly secure, and they are keyed so you can tell which way around they're supposed to go. And as I look here, I cannot see a thing. I think that's the right way around. There we go. And then once you're done, all you have to do is, if I don't drop everything on the floor at the same time, just slide it round your ears with the cable at the front and you're good to go. So how does the sound come out? Well, there's an interesting comment someone made on my M21 review when they saw the AC55s are actually in the background of that particular review. TrevDog94 said that he's really looking forward to my review because he has the AC55 alongside the AC45, and he's wishing for an AC50 because the 55 is too warm with recessed vocals and the 45 is too bright with harsh vocals. So that's an interesting thought. They did say they designed the AC55 to have more bass than the 45. Now, I don't know anything about the AC45, but with it, certainly they do have quite a strong bass once you have them on your ears. Now, he had trouble with the treble harshness and not of the 45, but not enough treble with the 55. And I did notice that with them, while they do have a fair amount of bass and a not particularly dramatic soundstage, given that the driver is right up against your ear, you can shift them a little bit forward or a little bit back on your ear to adjust the treble slightly as necessary. If I move them slightly, they're a bit more forward, I seem to get more bass, and a bit further back, I seem to get a bit less. It's going to depend very much on the shape of your ears as to how much bass and treble that you get. But I found them still, while they're a little bit rolled off on the treble, I think that with cheaper headphones that may well have more distortion from the driver or from the components, that you actually want a little bit less treble, because distortion in the treble and mid-range is less tolerable than distortion, say, in lower frequencies. So of that, I did listen to a couple of different pieces of music. I was listening to some tracks by Liz Wright and Cleo Sol. Now, Cleo Sol is not someone I usually listen to, but there's a particular track of hers that I like called Self. And Liz Wright has a song called Your Love. And I noticed that of those, that there was a good amount of fairly thick, but not too excessive bass. Now, if the track does have a lot of bass, that heavier bass is going to be significantly more noticeable. But I did find that the vocals still came through strongly enough for my taste, but they don't have quite that bright sparkle that some people may prefer. What I found them really good was with Soundgarden. Now, I don't expect, for example, soundstage depth with something like Soundgarden, and that's where they worked out really well, where I didn't have any particular concern about the fine details of the music, and I could just enjoy them from the strong bass and quite reasonable vocal presentation. On the other hand, things like Dave Brubeck as well actually came through pretty reasonably well, and I wasn't listening out for the fine details of each note hit in the piano or something like that, but actually I thought that they did pretty reasonably well, especially where music that doesn't have a strong bass line. However, with some rock music, of course, when there is a lot going on in the track, then things can become a little bit congested, a little bit overwhelmed. But again, this is not something I was expecting for around $200 to be particularly great. Probably the main takeaway is that I could plug them directly into, say, my MacBook Pro, and I could get an enjoyable listen out of them with a good amount of bass and enough clarity to relax and listen, and have them as a pair of headphones to use when I was just doing some relaxing listening and not paying much attention to what's going on in the music, unlike with my main systems, or systems in this case mostly I have borrowed to review, where I will focus more intently on the finer details of the music. Usually in this kind of price range, you don't get something like a 4.4mm plug with your headphones, so that works out well if you have something like a dongle DAC from FIO or one of the other makers that all happen to include 4.4mm connections as well. Although these things are so easy to drive, it doesn't really particularly matter which socket you use them out of. Probably my only negative in a sense from them, other than the possibility of there being too much bass for your preferences, is that the really blingy look of them is probably a little bit too much when I'm thinking of buying something that's only maybe a couple of $100, but maybe they might work out as a nice present for someone who would enjoy having something a little bit blingy for Christmas or for their birthday. The funny thing about clip-on earphones is that a comment someone made on my M21 review about the cassette case is that they said it was too bulky to be something to carry around. And given that back in the day we used to carry around cassette players that were even more bulky than that, with actually headphones that were much thinner and lighter than the headphones we tend to use today, there's a kind of irony that headphones have gotten more bulky in many respects, and that music players have become less bulky since they've all become digital. Wouldn't it be interesting if there was a bit of an increase in the number of clip-on headphones that were produced? Whether that's a viable idea for manufacturers to pursue, I have no idea. But anyway, do you have a pair, or did you get a pair by any chance? Do leave a comment below and let me know your impressions of them as well. That will also help other people who are looking to buy a pair of headphones or earphones and are wondering about the AC55s. Lastly, if you'd like to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, that will help it out a lot as well. And even more so if you become a patron or caffeinator. That will also help support these videos, which are made as the result of supporters such as yourself. As always, thanks once again for watching, and I look forward to chatting with you online.